I think in my life I've had a lot of white flag moments, from the moment that I surrendered to God when I was a teenager to battling back and forth with all just kinds of the typical and normal addictions of a adolescent, college-age guy. But it wasn't until God really opened up my eyes to see that there's so many other people hurting in this world, that it's not just about me. And when God became the God of my world and not Jason being the God of my world, everything changed. My attitude, my habits, I was a new person. I was, in the way the Bible describes it, a new creation. In my occupation, my life, everything changed. I went from chasing what the American dream is of just trying to get money and fame and be about me and my selfishness to chasing a dream of trying to help others. And I would never trade that for anything.
I really think one of my white flag moments was probably when I really started to examine how I needed to be as husband and father. And this probably came about 10, 11 years ago. Once I finally kind of got myself straight, I really needed to look back at my history and determine exactly what I needed to stand for as a husband and a father. And what I really think that meant for me, one, it was freedom, because I knew that the only thing I could pattern that after was God. Whatever it was that God could tell me about how to do those things that I didn't know how to do, I was going to follow. And I really think once I started doing that, it really woke me up to a lot of things that had been wrong, but it gave me a whole lot of hope that things were going to get great.
In 2010, I graduated from Regent with my film degree and had every intention of moving back to California and getting a job in a small media house near Hollywood and just creating media there. But right around the time I graduated, Jason tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, would you be interested in helping out in our arts ministry?" I thought about it and I prayed about it, and I said, "Sure." It seems like something that would be good for me. It's right what I want to do. And as I started working at Forefront, I began to realize that God was telling me, "I need you to stay here. There's people here who need you, and I think that I can use you for the better here." And it was a tough choice. I grew up in California. My whole family's there. All my childhood friends are there. But what makes it easy is when I see people's lives at Forefront changed. Every time somebody gets baptized, every time somebody decides to give their life to God, it just reminds me that God's idea and plan is so much better than mine.
I was a new bride. I had just gotten married, and David and I were in a church where they really encouraged one-on-one accountability. And so I entered into a relationship with a gal named Leanne, and she lovingly was taking me through the Bible and just teaching me principles of what it means to follow God. And I remember we spent some time on the topic of contentment, and she took me through scriptures and was teaching me how God feels about us being content in our circumstances. And God really broke me of my continual state of disappointment. I was living my life comparing myself to others, always wishing things were different, wishing I had more money or more of this or a different house or different clothes, and always living in that state of just never really feeling settled and peaceful and content with the circumstances in my life. And so God really broke me over that, and I truly remember letting go, and it really brought a life change for me. You can ask my husband. It was kind of a night and day experience where God turned me around.
I was in Bible college, and I was an intern here at Forefront, and at the time I had a pornography addiction, and it was bad. It was almost on a nightly basis that I would go to God and apologize and beg for forgiveness, and I couldn't overcome it, and I struggled with it, and I didn't want to do it, and I felt so horrible. I'm in Bible college, and I'm an intern at a church, and I remember one day I couldn't take it anymore. I tried everything I could to try and fix it, to overcome it, and I just couldn't, and I needed to surrender. And I remember going to Vince, and he was the pastor at the time, and I went into his office as this Bible college student and this intern, and I sat down and I looked at him and I asked him, Vince, all the stuff that you talk about on stage about grace and love and forgiveness, is that true for everybody, or is that just true for the people in the seats? Like, does that apply to me too? And he said, no, it applies to you too. And that's when I told him, I broke down, I surrendered, and I said, I have an addiction to pornography and I need help. And from that surrender, from that time I waved that white flag, I got help. I got into a support group. I was able to be open and real with the people in my gel group. I set up boundaries, and I fought to overcome that.
I think there's one thing that God wants from us, and when you can do this, everything else follows. I'm totally convinced, and that's surrender.
For us to come to a place where we reach the end of our rope, where we hit bottom and we say, I can't do this on my own. I need God.
It teaches us to love others more deeply. The world doesn't revolve around our little bubble anymore.
It'll make your life a lot more simple. It won't necessarily make it easier, but it'll make it much more simple.
And as parents, I would encourage husbands and wives recognizing that their own personal surrender to God directly affects their marriage in profound ways.
It's revolutionary. It's not what culture dictates to us, but it's ever life-changing, not only for you, but for the people that come into contact with you, because you are a representative, a messenger of the good news.